Welcome to another episode of Kenny's Kantina, eating in style from the road. So today I'm broadcasting from the Olympic Peninsula of Washington. After crossing the country from the East Coast, I'll be camped here for a couple of months, enjoying all the Pacific Northwest has to offer. There's Mount Rainier, Rainforest, Puget Sound. If you haven't made it here, put it on your list. It's definitely worth a trip out here. And there's great RV campsites all along the way. So one of the things when I travel, I like to try the local cuisines and then play with recreating them. This way I can replicate and share my travel experiences with others that I meet along the way. Out here in the Pacific Northwest, salmon is a mainstay, and the salmon run, or the spawning season, actually spans the summer, June through August. So all the local grocery stores you can find fresh salmon. Today, we're going to create a smoked salmon spread. So smoked salmon spread is a great appetizer with crackers. You can serve it as a meal on a bagel for breakfast or any time for that matter. You can also use crab or leftover grilled salmon to add into the salad in place of the smoked salmon to create some alternative spreads. And it can also be used as a great dip for vegetables, or you can spread on celery sticks for a party, or even a late night healthy snack. It's a refreshing dip. The recipe I'm doing today serves about 4 to 6 people, and you can store it in the refrigerator for up to a week. So the ingredients you're going to need for this, first off, an 8-ounce block of cream cheese, a tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce, a teaspoon of minced garlic, teaspoon of horseradish, half teaspoon of dill weed, half teaspoon of black pepper, half a lemon that you're going to squeeze, and a half a bunch of green onions that you'll dice up, and 3 to 4 ounces of smoked salmon. So starting with the preparation, the first step, soften the cream cheese to get it to room temperature. So just set it out, about an hour before you start making the dip. And what this will do is it'll make it much easier to mix in the ingredients. It'll blend much quicker than if you do the cream cheese straight out of the refrigerator. The second step is to place that cream cheese into a mixing bowl, and then I take a spatula and kind of flatten it out. And so that way you have kind of a puddle or a hole that you can add the other ingredients in rather than just it all running off the top. So one of the things, or the thing I start with, is the Worcestershire sauce. I use Worcestershire sauce in a lot of different recipes. I put it in tuna salad. I put it in cocktail sauce for dipping shrimp. It just adds a nice little zing to the dish. So I'm going to pour a tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce on top of the cream cheese. The next item is garlic, the minced garlic. And so for the minced garlic, you can chop up fresh garlic. That'll be a very bright taste from the garlic. I just buy a big jar of minced garlic, and that way it just saves some of the steps, and especially with traveling, you can always have garlic on hand. The next ingredient is the horseradish. So I'm going to use a teaspoon of horseradish. When you're shopping for horseradish, you can get horseradish that's really hot. I don't prefer that. I like the flavor profile of it. I don't want that burn, so I just use a mild horseradish, and I keep that in the refrigerator all the time. The next item is dill weed. Dill weed kind of enhances the flavor. It's got a little bit of a strong earthy flavor. You go to some restaurants and they put a lot of dill weed in. To me, that's too overpowering. So for this recipe, I'm just using a half teaspoon of dill weed just to give it a hint of the flavor. I don't want it to be overpowering. And then black pepper, just a half teaspoon of that, just to add a little spice to it. Here again, I don't want it to be overpowering, so I don't want to do that. The next ingredient is a lemon. You want half a lemon squeezed. Let me take my lemon, split it in half. And then I use a lemon squeezer that I put the lemon face down in. This will help keep the seeds and all out. And I'll squeeze that on top of the mixture. All the initial ingredients are in there. So now what I want to do is mix the cream cheese and these initial ingredients together. So with the softened, since you pre-softened the cream cheese, this is going to expedite this process. And here again, I'm using a spatula for this, holding it back on itself. When you first start, you're going to be thinking, because of the Worcestershire sauce, that, well, this is really dark. But that Worcestershire, as you get the cheese and all these ingredients mixed up, it'll turn back white. So you're not going to have that overall dark look that you get at the initial. So once all those ingredients are mixed in good together, I'm going to flatten that back out. I've got 2 more ingredients to add. First is green onion. I have in the recipe that you want to use a half bunch of green onions. The green onions that I bought today are pretty big, so that's working out to about 3 green onions is a half a bunch. So we're 6 in the bunch. I'm going to start chopping from the green end, okay? And as I chop this down, I'm cutting across all 3 at once. And when I stop down, I'm going to stop just as the white is starting, maybe just pick up 1 or 2 cuts on the white. And then that's going to leave stalks of about 3 inches. And there's nothing wrong with those onions. You can save those and chop those up for something else. But for this dish, I'm more concerned with the leaves of the green onions because of the flavor without having that really onion taste. And I also kind of like the texture of the greens from the green onion. So I'm going to chop this now. So I cut them sideways. Now I'm going to just go ahead and chop and dice those down. And so now let me put this on top of my cream cheese mix. And I have that there. Now I'm going to fold those into the cream cheese, mixing those green onions so I get green onions all through the space. Okay, all through the cheese, so it has a nice consistency and that it's spread all the way through. You don't want to take a bite and not have any green onions in that bite. So that's all mixed up. One thing I did do, let me point this out, is I left a few green onions, chops of the green to the side because I'm going to add that as a garnish on the end. And the main ingredient is the smoked salmon. And the piece I bought right at about a half a pound. So I'm going to cut off half of that. Okay, split that up. And the other half I'm going to save, probably flake that on a salad, which is a great summer dish, is just having flaked smoked salmon on top of a salad. So with this piece of salmon that I have, the first step after you've portioned out how much you want to use, and like I said, I'm using about 4 ounces, so half of a half-pound block of salmon. So the first thing that you want to do after you cut that is to peel the skin off the back. If it's smoked, that skin is just barely there. It's real easy to pull off. So you want to pull that off. Now you might find there's some gray type or gray colored salmon on the edge. That tends to be a little stronger, so you can kind of cut that off if you would like. And then salmon is a very flaky fish. And so I take it in my hands and I just start kind of finding where the flakes are and flake those off. And you don't want small flakes. You want pretty good sized flakes because when you start mixing it up, it'll break it down some. And you want to have those chunks of salmon. So peeling through and just piling up those flakes on top of each other. And then I'm going to take just a pinch and set off to the side with my leftover green onions because I'm going to garnish the top with that. And then let me put it in on top of the cream cheese that has all the other good ingredients in it already. And I'm going to start mixing this into the cream cheese. A tip here, what you want to do is you want to gently mix this step in the salmon into the dip. And the reason being is you want to preserve as many big flakes and chunks as you can. So just slowly start flipping it around. And here again with the softened cream cheese, this is going to make this much easier, and you're going to be able to spread those salmon flakes all through the process. Okay, and it'll take a little bit. Like I said, I'm doing it gently. I want to preserve the chunks of salmon so that when somebody bites into it, they can taste that. Okay, it's looking good here. I'm seeing great color, the orange from the salmon, the green from the green onions. This is going to be good. So now I have it all mixed up together. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to transfer this to a serving bowl. So I'm scooping it up, put it into the bowl, using that spatula to clean the sides of the mixing bowl. Okay. Now that it's in the bowl, I'm going to smooth that off, get it smooth, run a little paper towel around the edge to get the excess that's on the edge of the bowl. And then I'm going to take that flake salmon that I set aside, kind of just drop it in the middle, and then take the diced green onions that I saved, put that a little bit on top, and then I'm going to cover that and stick it in the refrigerator about an hour. And like I said, by putting it in the refrigerator and letting it sit for a little bit, the flavors of all those different spices, the green onions, the salmon, the lemon juice, all that is going to start blending together. So I've actually made 2 batches of this, and I have one in the refrigerator. So I'm going to pull that out and take a bite of it. It's been chilling about an hour. Spread it on the cracker, and you can see the color of the orange and the green. It's a very pretty look. That is really good. It's not, the salmon is not overpowering. It's smoky flavor. It's got a lot of flavor. The green onions gives it some texture and a little bit of flavor. The horseradish, we didn't use a lot of it, but it gives it just a little, not kick, but you can definitely pick up a little bit of the nuance of the flavor. And then you have a hint of the lemon juice. Lemon juice on fish, shrimp, any kind of seafood is really good. So that is good. I like that. So you can serve this on crackers, put it out with a tray of vegetables. You can toast a bagel, spread it on a bagel for breakfast. It's a great, easy appetizer or dip to use. Now, how about a few tips when making the spread? A couple things I want to highlight. One is add that smoked salmon last and gently mix it in, because you definitely want to be able to bite into some flakes of salmon when you're eating it. Otherwise, your dip is going to become very orange and not near as attractive, and some of that smoky flavor of the salmon will get lost. Another tip is chill it for an hour before you serve it to allow those time for the flavors to blend together. And one thing to keep in mind, Pacific salmon has a stronger flavor than Atlantic salmon. You can use either, and you can find, especially if on the East Coast, you can find smoked Atlantic salmon, and I've made this with that, and it comes out good. It just realized that the Pacific salmon, I find, has a little bit stronger flavor than the Atlantic salmon. Now, if you grilled salmon or cooked it salmon overnight in the oven and you have some leftovers, this is a great way. You know, chill those leftovers, let them firm up some, and then you can use those into making an alternative dip. You could also substitute crab meat I've done this before, buy a carton of lump crab meat, or now that I'm in the Pacific Northwest where Dungeness crab is plentiful, I can use Dungeness crab instead of the smoked salmon. And you can keep the spread in the refrigerator for about a week, so you can enjoy it as a lunchtime, just putting it on crackers as you travel down the road, or save it for breakfast the next morning with the bagel. If it'll last a week in your refrigerator, as far as you not eating it, that's another story. But it'll stay there for about a week. I hope you've enjoyed Smoked Salmon Spread, and if you have any questions on this, please give me an email. Speaking of questions, the last couple episodes have spawned a couple questions that I'm going to address now. So episode 2 was on breakfast tacos. And our first question comes from Tanya from Montreal, Canada. She asks, is a breakfast taco the same as a breakfast burrito? What's the difference? The difference is generally the size of the tortilla, with the burrito tortilla being larger. With it being larger, you can also add a lot more ingredients, like refried beans, more potatoes. You can make a bigger taco to eat, so it can hold a lot more ingredients. And I think the terminology can also be a regional difference. I'm from Texas, and we generally refer to breakfast tacos as breakfast tacos, not breakfast burritos. So I think there's a regional aspect to it as well. Our second question, also about breakfast tacos, comes from Marty in Delaware, asking, can I have breakfast on a corn tortilla? Sure, a corn tortilla will work just as well as a flour tortilla. So if you have a preference from corn in South Texas, where I'm from, they'll ask you corn or flour tortillas. It's perfectly acceptable. So whatever's your preference or what you happen to have in the house will work. Our third question comes from Hank in Arizona, also about breakfast tacos. Here he's asking me, you're obviously passionate about flour tortillas. Can you tell me why? Well, Hank, it's mostly just a personal preference. I like the freshness and the taste that comes with a flour tortilla, especially a fresh one hot off the grill. So it's really just a personal preference to what I like. Our first episode was on making a 2-minute salsa, and Margaret from Washington has a question on that. Her question is, what exactly is picante sauce and what else can I use it for? So picante sauce is more of a pureed than traditional salsa, which tends to be more chunky. So with picante sauce, I use that to add when I cook, like refried beans. I'll add in some picante sauce to that. Or if I make street corn on the grill and I'm adding mayonnaise and cream and cheese, I'll use the picante sauce on that pureed. So if you want to learn more about my 2-minute salsa, check out episode 1. Our fifth question, back on breakfast tacos, comes from Toby in Illinois, and he's asking, can I reheat this dish? If so, how long will it stay refrigerated? You can definitely make extra tacos and stick them in the fridge. What I do is I'll wrap them in cellophane and then just use the microwave to briefly reheat them. And you can keep them in there for up to a week. This can save you, especially if you're traveling, you make several up, and then you have a quick, easy breakfast that you can heat up in the microwave. The key tip on this is don't put the salsa on the taco until after you reheat it. So when you store it, hold off on putting any salsa on it. Otherwise, it's going to make your breakfast tortilla soggy. And our final question comes from Isabella in Brazil. And she asks if she can use cotija cheese in the dish, or do you think sharp cheddar is better? So a cotija cheese is a white crumbly cheese. You can see it on street tacos, things like that. And the answer, Isabella, is yes, you can use it on breakfast tacos. If I have it in my refrigerator to change up things, I'll actually crumble some on top. It is a slightly different flavor than the cheddar cheese, but it's still really good. Thanks for listening. Tune in again. If you have questions, send us an email. And I also want to thank my sponsors, IBC Productions and the Road Hog Media Network.